Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Cloud-Based Mayhem. I have some very brief and fun housekeeping, a little promotion of an event I'm running this fall. Actually, two events. We're running the Red Rocks Wide Open, which is the U.S. Nationals, and I think soon to be announced Canadian Nationals. That'll be firmed up this week. And pre-PWC, September 10th to 17th. So be on the lookout for that. Registration opens April 1st. It'll be on Air Tribune. And at the end of that month, September 29th through October 1st, 3-day stage race, and kind of the style of the Eiger Tour and Barraco Fly and Dolomiti, but an each day stage race. So each day is its own race, and it's scored cumulatively. We had the first one of those this last September. It was a huge success. There's awesome prize money in the pro category. We've got pro and adventure category, 65 pilots roaming around one of the most beautiful places in the world in the Rockies, throwing down hard. And I'm excited to announce we've got a whole bunch of the X-Alps legends joining. Patrick Von Cannell, who was second this year, is giving a presentation Wednesday night. Paul Guschelbauer and Aaron Duragati are both giving presentations Tuesday night, legendary Red Bull athletes. And Paul's done it 6 times, the X-Alps, and Aaron's done it 5 times, and a whole bunch of other races, of course. And who else do we have? Tanguy Renaud Good, who has the current most meters climbed in a single day and flown down, 13,340 meters or something crazy. An absolute beast, and won at the UAE Hike and Fly Championships. Tim Roches, longtime PWC pilot and Nivic test pilot. So, and we've got some other ones joining, which I'll be announcing in the next show. So some other really big names. So this is exciting, and check it out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And that's xredrocks.com. You can find more about that. And the application for that race closes April 20th. So a couple of dates coming up that are a lot of fun. This show is with my buddy Steve Bramfitt, who competed in the X-Alps this year for the first time. Had a crazy wild race, as everybody did, with the nutty weather and pretty gnarly accident near the end of that, which really slowed him down, I think the day before the end. So he's building a house right now in Interlaken, a tandem pilot there, and does a lot of wingsuit base jumping, and a very interesting individual, really good acro pilot, amazing cross-country pilot, obviously, and had a really good race this year. So we talked a lot about the X-Alps, and we had a lot of fun with this, and talked a lot about risk and future and goals and just some fun stories. So enjoy the show with GBR1 Steve Bramfitt. Steve, welcome to the Mayhem, man. We've been trying to do this for a few weeks, but Happy New Year, and I understand you've been repairing a little bit since the UAE. We'll talk about that, but welcome to the show.
Hey, yeah, cheers, Gav. Thanks for having me on the show. It's I'm stoked. I always listen to your show and really like it. I think it's great what you do to share the knowledge. So yeah, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, let's start off with the UAE. You were just telling me before we started recording there, I think a lot of us around the world were watching it. I was sad to not be there with you. I had to pull out right before the flight over as I'm building a place here. It sounds like you're doing the same. And we were pouring our footings and foundation and stuff, and I just couldn't get away. So it looked exciting, man. It was quite a trip watching you guys fly off the building, and a cool sunset session and over the city, and then racing out in the desert. It looked like a lot of fun.
It was, man. I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, normally it's the last place where you go for a hike and fly event or competition.
Yeah, but I didn't even know they had mountains.
Hey, it was cool. I had a rad time. It was like it was like competition, then day off, competition, day off, competition, day off. So yeah, I took my kite surfing equipment as well. And on the days off,
cool.
I went foiling with paddle and a few of the boys. And yeah, it was awesome. It was real cool. Jumping off the building, that was that was a lot of fun.
That looked hairy.
Yeah. The first day we went up there, and the actual platform wasn't down. It was just like a bunch of wooden planks, and we're like, holy crap. I think everyone had the same sort of idea, like this is like do or die. And even when they put the boards down and stuff, it was like it was a bit sketchy because like you'd be in the rotor a bit of the actual building. So
Yeah.
like the wind would come in, blow up, and then it would kind of, so you'd have to time it right for get the right pressure in your wing before, doing the leap of faith, I guess,
Yeah, it was definitely a leap of faith. I was glad that all worked out, but yeah, that looked really exciting. But then I think it was the third race, or maybe it was the last one. I can't remember. But you and Eduardo both had hard days. What happened to you there?
Yeah, so that was I think it was the third one, yeah. It's interesting, like we had the course. It was in Alfaya, and yeah, it was quite a short course, but we did it twice. So it was like a run up a 200-meter hill to the takeoff, and then it was like soar and kind of climb up and out, and then take the first turn point, come back in, we had to land, sign the board, hike back up, take off again, and there's a few like hops down to the other signboard, and then the same again. So I got a feeling of the day. It wasn't really juicy. It was like yeah, I mean it was like +4, +5, but it wasn't like a hard day in the X-Alps. Like it wasn't no big alarm bells going off saying, hey, this is quite juicy. And yeah, coming back into the ridge after the second to last turn point, I came in and then I was just kind of pulling myself up on the rears as I was coming on more bar, and got to the top of the ridge and then just 3/4 bar, and yeah, just had a full blowout of the wing, everything full frontal from nothing. I wasn't hardly any warning signs. Like I was holding on, and then before I knew it, my hands on the rears were under my ass, and then let go and then ditch the brakes right down, and the whole wing was gone.
Super. I was, yeah, when we were talking about this before, you don't see that much on two liners. That must have caught you as a hell of a surprise.
That's it. Yeah, that's kind of what did, because I pushed, way harder, lower on bar, and you generally catch it, or like you box it out, like you're hanging on and keeping it open. But yeah, I think it probably a combination of the sea breeze coming in and a bit of rotor. But yeah, I wasn't high. I was like 25 meters, and I knew as soon as it happened, I was like, I can't fix this. This is like, no. So when my hands were down, I had half a twist, a bin reserve. I didn't think it was going to open, but I thought just get it out, because if it does, it's going to help. And I thought if I let my hands up, this all happened in like a split second. If I let my hands up, then with half a twist, it would have pitched, and then I would have spiraled in, and that would have been it. So yeah, I pitched and then kind of just braced for impact.
So you threw, but it didn't deploy. It fell out to the end of its thing and didn't have enough.
Yeah, I got to line stretch. Yeah, I was hoping maybe, because I glanced down and it was the ridge, and I thought maybe I'm a bit more further out, and it was so quick, Gavin. It was like boom, 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 and kind of hit the ground pretty hard, and yeah.
Man, I this is a great lesson for everybody listening. I had a similar, not totally different circumstances, but it's instructive to keep that wing over your head at all costs in those situations, to keep those hands buried, isn't it? Because if you'd let that wing restart, I don't know if I'd be talking to you today.
Yeah, if it would have restarted with half a twist and that height, it would have pitched, and then you would have gone in with the pendulum with a bit of spiral maybe. So yeah, I think, they say in Swiss, Glück am Unglück, like luck in bad luck. So I'm pretty stoked to, I broke my back, I broke my L1 in 2 places. Yeah, it was interesting. So after I landed, then Tommy Federick was above and he's seen it. He went to land, and at the same time, Eduardo had a crash as well. So they were like the landing field, people were going to Eduardo, and this was like the same time. So yeah, he got in a dune buggy with this other guy and came up and got to me, and then kind of took it from there. Hey, it was really interesting. So we asked, they the idea was to get an air ambulance because I knew my back was broken, or like it felt pretty hard. I checked myself, my feet, my legs, like I didn't have any tinglings, and I've had a few knocks before, so I was like, yeah, I'm not badly broken. Like I can feel everything, like self-assessment. And then, like an hour and a half, a few hours went by, and this other guy came, and he says, yeah, it looks probably not like the air ambulance is going to come. And to navigate over this terrain at night, it's quite tricky because it's quite hostile and steep. And then he says, and also nighttime, the snakes come out.
What?
Yeah. So that was like,
whoa.
That was like, okay, all right. Let's try and like scramble. Yeah, it's like 200 meters to this kind of track. And as long as like I had Tommy on one side and Abdullah, a local pilot, on the other side, like, as long as they took my weight on my shoulders, then we kind of like got to the dune buggy and then lay down there. Then it was down to the dunes, and the ambulance was waiting on the road. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's a tough end to a cool event, but it sounds like everything's going well. This is what, little over a month later now, something like that, more than that, I guess. But
6 weeks.
You got medevaced back, and you're back home in Interlaken.
Yeah, that was real cool. So I was in there for a few days, and then with the insurance, I got Rega, and that's like a local Swiss insurance. It's super. Yep. It's like $40 a year. Every Swiss pilot, every Swiss person's pretty much got it. And yeah, they came. They picked me up. The private jet flew me back straight to Bern, straight to Innsbruck. The painkillers in Dubai, they're not really that good. The ones they gave me, it was like paracetamol on IV and this other one. And the ones back in Switzerland, I think it was on morphine and ketamine, and I was flying. Yeah, it was a trip.
Good to be home.
Yeah.
That a good segue into your life a little bit. You're a Brit, but you're living full time now in Switzerland. And how long has that been?
In Switzerland now, just I think a little over 11 years or 12 years now. Yeah. Yeah, back and forth.
And
for a while.
Do you speak German?
A little bit. It's really hard to learn Swiss German here because everyone speaks really good English. But
yeah, right.
It makes it, and generally, all the clients are American or Chinese, Arabic with the tandem. So yeah, I can get by for sure with Swiss German, but definitely got to do some more work on it.
And did you move there originally for the tandem work, or was it jumping?
It just kind of fell into place. I came here originally because when I learnt flying back in New Zealand, I was only interested in flying acro, like tandems and cross country never really appealed to me. It was just like I seen this guy from the gondola do these spinny things, and I was like, man, that looks super cool. And then this guy, his name's Craig Taylor. He kind of took me under his wing, and I learned super quick within I think 2 months of having my license. I was flying off the gondola, trying to do helis and stalls and stuff. Like had a real quick progression, not one that I'd recommend. And a lot of kind of naysayers was and looking back, I fully get it now. And Craig was like, hey, if you're going to do this, these are the golden rules which you've got to do, and stick with these, wind drift and altitude and things like that. And then he says you got to go to Lauterbrunnen. There's a place called Mirren, and that's the place to train and do laps. And I was working as a raft guide in New Zealand, and I said, can you raft there? And he's like, yeah, there's a place called Outdoor Interlaken, and then contacted them, got a job, and then went there for the season. And then back and forth for quite a few seasons, back and forth to New Zealand and back. And I thought, wow, New Zealand's beautiful. Like I'd live there in a heartbeat, but it's so far away is one thing. And like here in Europe in the Alps and Switzerland's, it's a rad place to live. It's
Mm.
my gardens.
Do you, is it? I mean, I know Interlaken gets a lot of expats, and it's a pretty touristy place. A lot of people go there for, it's incredible. Grindelwald and Muren and the Eiger, and I mean everything is there. It's just awesome, awesome flying, awesome jumping, all the things that I know you love to do, paddling. But is it hard living in another country that's not your own? Do you feel like a Swiss? Do you feel you've been absorbed into the community, or were you all, I've always felt like when I'm living somewhere else that you're always kind of an outsider.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Kind of like the biggest thing I miss, like, I guess, is the native tongue. Just kind of like the
Mm.
banter, the Kiwi banter, just have a good sort of yarn. But nah, they're awesome here. They integrate you really nice, and yeah, I mean, obviously, I miss my mother tongue, but yeah, it's super nice, and the cool people, and quite soft on the inside, hard on the outside. But as soon as you get to know them, then they're real nice.
Mm. Steve, you and I had a good chat down at the British a couple years ago, or was that three now? I can't remember if it was
In
right after
Colombia,
the 2019 race, I think, right?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And you had, I didn't know this, but you had gotten into that one. You'd gotten the wild card or the invite kind of late, right? Do I have that right? And you decided, yeah, no, I'm not going to do it. Was that right?
For the
For the 2019 race.
yeah, yeah, that was the combination, because like I bought my house here at the same time, and I wasn't super fit, and just I had a lot of other things going on inside my life. So yeah, I applied to get in, and then I got in, and then I couldn't really give it 110%. So yeah, I talked to, what's his name, the meet director, and
Christoph.
Christoph, and he was fully cool with it and understood.
Mm. So I remember, talking to you on the way up to launch that day that, you were asking me a lot of questions about the race, and, you were clearly, you had it on the docket for the future, for 2021, which you did, and we'll talk about, but you were, as I was going into 2015 race, man, what am I taking on here? And you seemed pretty concerned about it in a way, just, can I do it? Am I ready? As all the things that I think all rookies have. I'd love to know what about the race met the reality, the expectation. What about it was, oh yeah, versus, because you'd done the Eiger, you had done some other hike and fly races going in. I went into 2015 having done none. That was my first hike and fly race, was the X-Alps. So I didn't have any, just, I had no idea where I belonged. Am I going to get eliminated right off the bat, or am I going to do okay? I was terrified going into the first one, and I'd love to know just what of the race was. Yep, I was kind of ready for that, and what caught you by surprise? What was different about the race that you didn't anticipate?
The tiredness. Like, I knew from the Xperia and stuff that, like, you get tired after like day 4 or 5, but I think that was a thing that was super hard to cope with. Like after day 6, 7, you're just a zombie a little bit, and then you warm up and get going. Yeah, but I mean, the whole thing was just such a rad adventure, and yeah, just going and seeing the places where you see, and I think the anticipation before doing it, you kind of like, am I good enough? Am I going to be eliminated the first? Am I ready for this? Have I got any right doing this race? And then, yeah, just with the previous races, then you kind of say, okay, I did this, I did well in that race, well in this race, and just trying to, I think, self-confidence. I think more the reason the first time why I didn't do it as well, because I wasn't ready, or I was doing it for the wrong reasons. I was doing it to kind of like in my head to prove to myself, and then this time around I did it more because I wanted to do it and see the Alps and do it with my team and have a fun adventure.
Yeah, it seemed like your approach was just that. It was, I don't know, it did, from the outside, we didn't get to spend any time together during the race, but from the outside and, watching the wrap up video and stuff, it seemed like your approach was very much, let's just have one. let's have a good time. I've been watching your daily, you've done these video posts of each day. And the first couple really struck me as, God, he was just having fun. And it was really working for you. You were in the top 10 there. You had the total opposite of I had a terrible start, and we just couldn't get our act together. And it wasn't the team. The team was awesome. It was just, as I've said before, I was really out of sync with everything. It just seemed like I was constantly in the wrong place at the wrong time. And after watching your videos, I've questioned, like, maybe I was just taking it too seriously, just putting too much pressure on myself. You were doing a ton of filming and just seemed like you were having a good time. And it seemed like that was really working.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool. I mean, I think one thing that affected me, which you found out during the race, was if I would know whether people were in front or behind, and I was asking my team, like, oh, where's such and such, then my flying would kind of go worse. And then we found that out after a few days, and then I just said, I don't want to know where they are, or who's in front or who's behind. I'll find out in the evening. And then the less information that I had from them, the better I was flying, the more kind of decisions I was making, not based on who was in front or which line such and such took and yada yada. And yeah, that helped me a lot.
What if you could have done something differently in prep? What would it be when you look back on it, or if you've had a talk with your team, with Mark and Ollie and the boys? What did you guys blow or miss?
I think that one, which is a good one, like not to. For me, the team were awesome. Like they did so much behind the scenes that I didn't see, and if there was like problems behind the scenes, like I wouldn't know about them. Like if it was from not getting fuel or food, or it was just like, okay, Steve, such and such, this is where you're going to hike now. Go up there, enjoy, have fun. That's the course line. Yeah, the prep, it was really good, man. I had such a good team. In the Xperia, a few years back, I just had Tom Payne, and it's too hard just for one supporter and one athlete. So I really learned a lot from that race. Was saying, right, I need the guys driving to have a rest, and this is kind of like leapfrog the whole day, so everyone stays charged. And that worked really well. I think, I participated in the X-Alps, but it was kind of the team that kind of made us get to where we got.
Yeah, the team dynamic is crazy good, isn't it, when you got a good team?
Amazing.
I think I like that more than anything else. There's a lot of things to like about the race, but man, you laugh a lot. That's a good time.
It was so good. Yeah.
What has it been like for you on the backside of the race? Since then, are you thinking a lot about the next one? Are you, is it hard to I've had a hard time after all of my races in the post, just kind of, you're living at this insane level for a whole bunch of days. I mean, life doesn't get much better than that, and pretty hard to match.
Yeah. I mean, like I've heard on your podcast about this, and I was prepared for it, but what I wasn't prepared for was to be, I had a thought after the race, then I'd keep training and do the Argo Tour and keep this kind of like level of fitness, because it's the fittest I've been in my life, and it was a super cool journey getting there. But I got injured on I think day 11. So after the race, I was hobbling, I couldn't move, so I just had to rest and not move so much. So I think it was harder because I couldn't get out and run and keep fit and start work tandems again. It was like everything just went to a complete stop, and it was like you're used to this super high level of like boom, 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 go, 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 and then it just stops, and it's like, whoa, okay, this is this is where we are now. This is life.
Did you get help with the training? Did you get a trainer? And
yeah. So
or did you just do it on your own?
I got a Ben Seddon, who was Kruger's original trainer, and he did me like a proper training plan with the craft training at the first, then endurance, and then building up, and then the tapering, and that was awesome. That was like as fun as the race. Maybe not quite, but just having this progression in your body and just getting fit and fit and fit, and having time to train was just the whole prep to it was an adventure. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
What was the accident at the end? I've heard a little bit about this from one of your supporters, Mark Simpson, but it sounded pretty intense.
Yeah, so it was around. We took off. We had a long hike the day before through Aosta Valley because the weather was super bad, and we took off from just up from Aosta, one of the hills, and was flying across. It was around about 20 kilometers before Domodossola, and I was leapfrogging quite a bit with Mamo Nubel during the race, and then he was like, I think 5k in front or 10k in front. We're always kind of like jumping each other, and the cloud cover came over, so I thought, I'll come in and land here and hike up to the top of the ridge. I forget the name of it, what the actual divide was called. And when I
were you trying to get up into the Macagnaga Valley? I think it was.
Yeah,
it had that big, almost had a road back there. It was a pretty cool World War II. Not a road, not for cars, but for
that's it.
It was a proper zigzag on coming into the back of the Macagnaga Valley. Yeah, because I was there.
Yeah,
right.
Okay. I looked for that track.
I know it. I top landed in the same place.
Exactly. So when I come into top landed all good, and it was really quite windy. And then it was on like a boulder field, and as my wing came down, I got like a gust from above, and it just picked my wing up and just dragged me backwards down this boulder field. And it was like landed okay, good, and then as the wing came down, it was like boom, and then I thought I broke my leg. It was massive, my thigh. And I was sick twice, and then I was like, right, let's get a rescue.
What do you mean you're sick? You threw up?
Yeah.
Was it a laceration?
No, it was just a real hard impact. So like it picked me up and dragged me down, and then I whacked my leg on the side of a boulder or something. I'm not too sure. And I was sure it was broke. I was like, I'm done. That's it. And then, I kind of got my breath together, pulled up my compression shorts and had a look and did some pushing. And first I told my team, I was like, I've had a crash. It's not good. Yada, yada. And then Matthias was like, okay, should we call for like an air ambulance? And I was like, no, do not call just yet. And then, I had like 10, 15 minutes and then stood on it. I was like, okay, it's not broken. I've just battered it. And it turned out it was a big like hematoma on my right thigh, which was,
Yeah. So you were able to keep going.
So that's where one of the adventures started. So by that time, the team were already around in Domodossola, so they had to drive like it was like 2 hours back around to where I was, and then I managed to pack my wing inside my harness, and then kind of hobbled down. I think 200 meters down took me like an hour and a half, like super not moving fast. And I knew, like, I seen this hut on maps, and I was like, okay, if that hut's cool, I'll stay there the night. I'll see how bad it is, and then if it's really bad overnight, then I'll have to pull out the race. And I'm going down to this hut, and then Ollie and Mark come up, and they meet me around about, I don't know, a few hundred meters before the hut, and then we go down to this hut, but it's like a private hut, and we were looking around for keys and stuff. I'm like, because if I went down to the valley floor, it's like an extra 1,000 meters or something, 1,500.
Yeah. Then
that would be me done. I'd have been out the race. There would be no way that I could get back up the next day. And that's a story. So Ollie and Mark are looking around for this key, and then we can't find a key. And Ollie comes around with this rock, and he's like, I found a key in the shape of a rock. I found a rock in the shape of a key. So we how can we say it? We entered. Well, Ollie entered into this private hut, and it was perfect. There was beds there, a kettle, food. I was like, this is spot on. I'm saved. we'll spend the night here. We'll leave like $100, €100, and like a note saying, hey, sorry, broke into your hut. It was an emergency, yada, yada. So it was all good. It was getting a bit dark. And then, and then we hear this motorbike, and Ollie's like, this guy's coming up towards the hut on a trials bike. He's got a helmet. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's coming towards us. And we had the lights on inside the hut. Anyway, this guy gets up there, man, and he's got this blooming machete on the back of his bike, and he's like, this is my hut. This is my hut. You broke into my hut. We're thinking, oh man, this guy's pissed. Like, he's super, super angry at this point. And Ollie, this guy, hey, he can sell water to a duck. He's like, oh
yeah. Ollie's the one you want on your team in those situations.
Oh man, he's you do trials riding. Oh, you've got like a trials Scottish badge on your bike. You know, you do competition. Completely redirecting this guy. And he's like, yeah, I do trials. I Scottish, but you broke into my hut. You know, he really wanted to be angry, and he's got this machete in his hand. I'm like, oh shit, man, I can't move. I'm gonna get chopped up. And I'm inside in his bed, and he's looking in like, oh man, what's this guy doing in my bed?
Oh my gosh, man, you guys are Goldilocks. You've just taken over.
Yeah. And then anyway, he's talking to him. He's like trying to de-escalate the conversation as much as he can. And then he says that we're in the X-Alps and this, and he's like, X-Alps, okay, yeah. He says, I know Guschelbauer. And I was like, and then he's like, oh, cool. He's like, yeah, he stayed in one of my Airbnbs 2 years ago in the race. Perfect. And then we showed him on the live tracking, and he was okay. Then he came in, he turned on the gas, he turned on the water, and he was fine. We give him a Red Bull cap and €70 for the door, and he was fine. He was happy. So yeah, it was really good to have Ollie and Mark there.
That's hysterical, man. That's amazing. Yeah, that's where you want Ollie on your team. You know, you're right. He can sell water to a duck.
Yeah. So yeah, and then from there, then we said, okay, we'll spend the night, see how bad it got. I phoned my brother because he's a paramedic, and told him what I had. So like my legs, the whole of my legs, the size of my upper thigh. And then he said, yeah, just keep checking on it through the night, see if it gets worse, because he was scared of like bleeding if I got like a ruptured vein, a ruptured thing in there. And then it was all right in the morning, and then I could kind of hobbled up to the top of the ridge, and it was all in snow, and then took off, and then it was tricky. I couldn't push. I could push bar, but just on my 1 foot. So it was really hard to push bar, and then and hard to walk. So I wanted to try and stay in the air as long as I could, but crossing over Domodossola, it was like super strong wind, and then landed on half bar, kind of going backwards, and then landing hobbling, and every day was an adventure.
Yeah, tell me about Andermatt. Ollie said to ask you about how in the world did you pull that off? There was wires everywhere. I'm always nervous of Andermatt because the big wind generators, and you've got the Arolo coming in, and whatever the one from the north coming in, and it can get pretty spicy in there. But you have a story to tell from that?
Yeah, I've always said in Switzerland that there's one place where I don't want to land, is Andermatt in Wassen.
Yeah.
Because it's just cable galore. And I ended up landing in the middle of Andermatt, going under and over cables. Like it was tricky. Like I came, and then there was strong like north föhn up high, and it was like a strong south wind down low. The first time I tried to go, I just got a strong south wind up high and north low. I got smashed by the south wind, and then I come back, and then I landed on not quite sure where it was, hiked back up, and I thought, well, I'll try it again, but I'll first go low with the north wind, and then try and climb up into the south, and then soar up and keep going. And yeah, it didn't work. I landed like right in the middle at the bottom with all the roadworks and the river and the cables, and the cable alarm was like just singing when I was going down. Woo, woo, woo. And I was like, yep, I know. So there's another one. Yeah.
What do you mean your cable alarm? You got something in your device that has all the Swiss cables?
Yeah. It's just like on
Wow.
XC tracks, and then it shows you like most of the cables in Switzerland. Not all of them, but kind of most of them, which is really handy. It doesn't have all of them on like some of the old hay cables.
Yeah.
But then it was also really funny. After that, we had to hike up the pass, and I was hiking with Matthias, and at exactly the same time, there was this Chinese tour group of like 200 people. It was ridiculous on this single track. And I was like, this has got to be a joke, man. This timing to like, and Matthias is going in front and he's like, move out of the way. I'm just coming behind him, and these people are super pissed. Like, no, wait your turn. I was like, oh. And yeah, he kind of like battered through like a way. And then I followed him, and then we climbed it to the top, and then I could fly and land in Fish.
Tell me about flying off Mont Blanc, and you're having. It sounds like you were having this pretty good battle with Manu. Manu is the king of the comeback, which we saw again this year. I was with him and Theo day one in literally the back, and he ended up really rallying and having a great race. I think he ended up fifth. But you flew off Mont Blanc. That your team lost you, and Ollie said he camped under a tarp that night in a thunderstorm, and he said it was the best night of the trip. What happened that night?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, it was quite coming around after Dent d'Oche to Mont Blanc. That was ridiculously strong winds. That was, yeah, it was so windy. Like I landed, and it was going. I was on full bar, going backwards at probably 10k an hour. And it was real tricky because there was the airspace, so like you had to thread the needle next to it. And yeah, landed. I was just happy to be on the ground at that point. That was before actual Mont Blanc, and then we hiked up to the top, and it was a full lightning storm, and Manuel was, I think, a little bit in front at that point, and then took off after that. We went to the top of the hut and had like rosti in there and some food. And then the storm kind of passed over, but it was still like gusting 70k. It was super strong. Then we hiked down and took off in the lee somewhere, and flew down course line, and lost all comms with the team then, because it was quite like in the middle of nowhere. And I thought, well, I'll keep walking course line, because the team will see me on the live tracking. And it was right at the back of this track in the middle of nowhere. I thought, well, I'm not going to go too much further because this is the end of the road. So I'll just wait here. And then in half an hour, the team were there, and we spent the night there. It was super rad.
It sounds like Ollie said that was the funny. There was so much laughter that night. He said your sides were hurting. You guys were laughing so hard. You were probably asleep, or maybe it was just your team.
Yeah, I was super tired, but I had my friend Carlo and Danny for that part, because you need a mountain guide to go up over the glacier. So we had the one car, it was Danny's car, and it was Carlo and Danny, and then Mark, myself, and Ollie. So there wasn't enough space to everyone be inside the van. So yeah, Ollie camped in a tarp underneath the side of the van, and then Mark was in the tent in a right blizzard. It was a hell of a storm.
Yeah, it was rowdy up there. I got there the next day, and holy cow, I had a couple of the scariest flights of my life. I've never taken off and stuff like that ever. It was, it's a big mountain, big winds.
Yeah, it's full on. Hey, but the next day I seen you had a real nice flight, because I think I was the day ahead, and then we had to walk through Aosta Valley. I think I was talking with Tom Dodorda, and like we were kind of very, very close and just having a yarn. So yeah, let's go up, and then we'll like fly this part together. And then he was high, and I was a bit more lower down. It's like, okay, we'll see. And then we both ended up walking, Manuel, Tom, and myself, but in different parts through Aosta. And it's like 70k or more. Yeah, that was quite a long, boring hike.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard my story about that, but we got up to the col, at Mont Blanc where everybody did, and you hopefully fly from there. You're right at the edge of airspace, and it was just it was blowing 50 to 70. It was ripping, and so we kind of just foot skied off the back where there was lots of tracks. Obviously, a lot of the people in front of us had done the same thing, and we kind of got around fully in the lee, and it's. If you walk, I could see the next col where I'm trying to get, that's leading to the Aosta Valley. And, if you walk that, it's a long walk. And I thought, man, I got to make this work and just try to fly over to that col. And so, we sat for quite a while just feeling the wind because we were, proper in the lee and in the kind of the gut of where this wind was swirling around like crazy. And the takeoff went fine and the flight was fine, but very hands-on, and I immediately got up. There was weird, I don't know if it was a thermal because it was just totally cloudy, but there was a lot of air moving around. And as I got over to the other col, there was a big group of people down at the ground, and I forget what pass that is, but it's where everybody else went. And I was kind of pushing, I just really read it wrong. It was a really strong North Fern day. So I'm on the south side and I'm expecting to take kind of a beating at the col. And so I'm pressing into the wind, getting to the col, and I get over the col with a good 300 feet. I had some altitude. And I thought, okay, well, now I'm going to be on the windward side. This will be better. I'm now on the north side. And completely read it wrong. All that air that was dumping, I think, from the Coteens Valley into that one I'm talking about was flowing. It was reversing the Fern or something. I don't know what was going on, but I went from 300 feet to the deck, straight down with the wing completely open. It was worse, way worse than being under reserve. It was just, when you just can't steer your glider at all, you've got no forward motion. And it's the hand of God just coming down on you. And as I was plummeting, it was a plummet. There was no control over this at all. And I thought, okay, God, I got to at least do something to hit the snow. There was dirt under me and snow under me in various places. And right before I hit, I thought, shit, I'm not going to hit the snow. I'm going to hit the dirt. And I just fully expected both my legs to buckle. The only thing I had in my head was just to PLF and save my ass somewhat. But I thought for sure this is going to hurt really bad. And the dirt was 6 inches of soft mud. It had just been melted out, and it was basically landing in a shallow pond. It was totally soft. But what did my head in was, I landed in just nothing. It was a non-event. And then the wing almost, kind of like when you got hurt, the wing almost blew me off the hill. It was blowing that hard down, but towards the Aosta. So I had that in my head, and I packed up, and I had this very easy hike over into another valley that's more towards the east. That would be that led down to the Aosta. And I think other people had gone that way as well. And I hiked over the little col and around into the gut. And again, I know I'm fully in the lee, and I thought, okay, I'll just sit here and see how this feels. And I was getting reports from my team down in the Aosta of, white caps on the little lakes and ripping. And it just sounded pretty scary. And I didn't really have anything to gain at that point. You were too far ahead, but I did have Yael and Latcher. They weren't really moving too much. And I thought, well, it'd be nice to just, I had a really good flight out of Fiche, and that was about it the whole race. And I thought, man, it'd be nice to, so I hadn't really given up, but I thought I don't have to kill myself. I don't have any, like getting hurt or killing yourself now would be really stupid. I'm not, there's nothing to gain here. I'm not getting to the goal. And so I sat for a long time listening to Revis go, man, it's pretty hairy down here. But I think if you get in the air, you can use Mont Blanc as a shield. This wind, you could fly in the lee of Mont Blanc. I think it's doable. And I was looking at the clouds, and hearing these reports of the valley winds just ripping, and the North Fern was really real that day. It was honking. And I said, I don't know. And eventually where I was sitting, it was just too strong and too light and too weird. And I thought, nah, this is an accident waiting to happen. So I actually hiked up higher and I got more around into the lee and had by far the strongest launch of my life. I've never launched in that strong winds. And the flight was glorious. I made it to where you're talking about, just on the backside of the Makagnaga, and just having one. It was a really, really good flight. And the reason it ended there was some cell had dropped out in the valley you're talking about that you walked up. And, it was beautiful and sunny and perfect getting there. It was perfect. And it was totally working. It was west facing late in the day. All I had to do was just plant myself on this stuff and ridge soar / thermal up and keep hucking. I mean, I felt like I had Bellinzona easy that day, if I could have kept going. And then suddenly I got to the peak height looking into the valley that leads the one before Makagnaga, and I don't know how long it had been dark. It had been dark for a long time. And so I couldn't keep going. And then, so that was it. That's basically where, I had some little flights the next morning out of the Makagnaga, but, yeah, it was glorious. It was interesting too, because it took me about an hour to calm down. I had this crazy launch and it was just, holy cow, this is going to be such a battle. And it wasn't that much of a battle. It was just like Revis said, once I got in the lee of Mont Blanc, it felt very Kriegelish in a sense, because it was just, oh, this is what he does. He uses these big mountains for shelter, and it actually, it was really strong west with North Fern on the ground. And, as long as you didn't go low, it was okay.
Yeah. And I think day 10 and 11, they were probably the best flyable days for where we were during the race. Like the conditions were strong, but they're like you could do more distance because the base was quite high.
How do you think about it looking back? I saw the wrap-up film. You were totally stoked, but looking back, because this, in my experience, this was my fourth. In my experience, this was by far the gnarliest. In 2015, we had winds that matched this one, but we didn't have the Fern as much, and we didn't have the thunderstorms and the hail and just the craziness of this one. This one was pretty wild, total opposite of 2019. Is it, at the end, were you, I can't wait to do this again, or were you, man, I don't know, that was pretty on the edge?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I know what you mean. There were some days you're like, what am I doing in the sky? Like you heading in towards a storm. From Lemus to Santis, I had such an epic flight that day, but it was like during the day, like I had a full-on disco dance and landing. I caught it with Yale and had a real juicy time when I come into land, like just keeping the wing open. And then after that, I could just stay in front of the weather. Like I did a hike up and then a few little flights. And then I took off just as it started raining. And then it started raining hard and harder. And then it started to, hail was coming down. I was like, oh man. And my Vario at the same time, my Vario was screaming like beep, 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 beep on full bar. I was like, this isn't a good place to be, Stevie. But then I got out close to Fell Creek, and my wing dried off, and then I was in a nice like beep beep. I thought, okay, I'm just going to keep taking this all the way up, and then flew across the valley and landed, and I was freezing, but all my stuff was like, my wing was dry, my harness was dry, but I was soaking. And then my team come up and see me. They're like, oh, Steve. I was like freezing my ass off. I'm like, oh, I need some clothes. Like, why? Everything's dry. I was like, no. I was like, oh yeah, you're soaking. So,
jeez.
Yeah, experience.
It sounded like that flight. That flight. Eduardo talked about that. He was with that group, but Cody, Lori. Sounds like there was some pretty heavy PTSD for some folks that day. I got to Lermus that day a few hours after you guys had left and walked. It was just, I looked at the sky and went, this is not flying. This is not flying weather. Just lightning bolts and hail. And holy shit.
But it's interesting because you just get in that zone, which you wouldn't, you just wouldn't get in that zone if you're recreational flying. You wouldn't put yourself in those places. But I think like even though you put yourself in the places, you kind of zoned in so much. Like the risk is there, but it's not as high. So, for instance, if you're flying like most of the day, but there's a few times where you've got to be like 100% concentrated on getting over a ridge or getting through the storm or getting around the storm or something. Yeah, then it's more controllable.
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? Yeah. I mean, I can't get there in the training. No. I purposefully have gone out on days that I know are like the X-Alps, and they're just terrifying. I don't enjoy it, and I just think, what am I doing? And then in the race, you get to this place where it's almost anything is possible. It's a weird one.
Yeah.
Tell me about the disco dancing landing. That sounded interesting. What do you mean?
So that was interesting. Like I caught it with Yale, and then like she crossed the valley, and I was just behind her, and I was just like, why is she crossing? I was like, oh, because she's getting flushed by this other valley coming on that side. And then as I got up, then I just got in the downwash or from this kind of valley system blowing out and up. So I crossed over to Yale, and then we climbed up, and it was honking. We pushed over. I don't know the name of the valley exactly, and kind of just creeping forward, but into like a low, like tight canyon. Yale landed then, and I thought I'd just try and get around the corner and climb up. But there wasn't a climb, and then it was just getting more lower, and the wind was getting stronger and stronger. And there was just this main road to kind of land on. So I was like, I've got to get to this part with no trees to get it in there. And coming in, and it was just like, I filmed it on GoPro, but it really doesn't do it justice. Yeah, it was super tight. And I was like, poof, got on the ground, kissed the ground. I was like, okay, there we go. This is a bit of disco dancing. And then, just carried on walking, and then did the same again. Yeah, it's funny. Then you look back at the end of the day, like, holy crap, like it's quite a bit of distance and quite some moments.
Yeah, crazy. I don't know, just past that, you get to Liechtenstein. We had a little tiny segment in there in Liechtenstein, and sounds like you spent a bunch of time with buddies that were mountain guides who maybe weren't very good city guides. Ollie said he wasn't even sure if you were aware of that. You were so tired, but your team took a break. Your mountain guide friends took over, and it sounds like they took you off on a bit of
yeah. There was
didn't take you very direct.
There was two cases. Yeah, there was one where they were like, I said that I had to go to Santis, and I'm pretty used to my team saying, "Hey, walk that way. We'll send you a track." But there was two occasions. There was one where a bunch of locals come, and they're like chewing you on. Yeah, we know the shortcut this way. I was like, cool. So this is the way that Gushbauer came, and I was like, cool. Yeah, I'll just follow you. I don't want to think. And it was a detour by not much, but probably 150 meters, and probably 900 meters off route. And then the same after that, like I met up with Danny and Kyle, and it was just like, if you look at the track, it did like a little kind of a little C shape where we could have just gone directly. It was 4.5K difference, but Mark and Matt were having a look at the track log, like, what's Steve doing? Where's he going? Why is he going here? But yeah, I think there's a case of being tired and listening to other people. Yeah, there's a few little moments like that. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm actually not. I've got to go there and not here.
Yeah, just wasted an hour. An hour in a race with that kind of pace is a lot of time, isn't it? Yeah, those are they add up. Damn it.
The pace. A few times I was like, right, there's no one gonna. I've definitely got to gain here. That was terrible conditions. And then you check back in, then you look and like, nope, you haven't gained. Everyone's like got closer or like right behind you, or you're like, wow, the pace and the level is ridiculously high.
I'm wondering, how are you thinking about that? Are you going to do it again?
Oh, I've got until June to decide. Yeah, I mean, I want it. It's the best adventure race I've done. It's like you say, like you can't get there any other way. Like the hardest moments are they're the best. They're the ones which you remember the most. But it takes so much time to. I mean, the fitness you can get there. I think anyone really can get there as long as you have like a structured training plan. But just to like, if you look at the top 10, top 5, they're all test pilots. Like I fly tandems. That's my full-time job. I'm not out there flying every day in these conditions. And I think to have that extra kind of sensitivity, you just need to be doing it every day, day in, day out. And it also takes like, for the 9 months leading up to it, it was just X-Alps. So from a partner, Samira as well, like she was awesome with it. She was really, really good. But it just, everything, like life stops and it's just training. It's like, and it's awesome, the ski tour and everything else, but like the whole period up to it, it's not just, it's cool and fun for me, but everyone in your family, it's quite, okay, it's X-Alps.
It's intense for them too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a big undertaking for a lot more than you, isn't it?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But yeah, man, like I say, it was the best adventure. It was so much fun. And the places you go, the people you meet bringing you food and giving you bananas and just cheering you on, like the energy that you get from the people as well. It's incredible.
Do you feel like where you live, I mean, I know your job is tandem, so maybe I don't know how much pure time you get for XC exploration and that kind of thing. I know you race, but do you feel like living there really helps? Going through that part of the course, was that beneficial? Going down through the Rhine and the Rhone, and having that kind of be your backyard. There's always been, gosh, if the race goes through Kriegel's backyard, we're all toast. Which it really did this year. It went through an area that he knows really well. I'm wondering if that, you feel like that hurts?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, Gavin, because I would think it would, but say for instance, when we got to Fiescht, I go to valleys when it's a good day to fly, and when we were there, it was like 10 hectopascals firm, and like not the conditions I'd ever go there normally, because you go there on a good day. So yeah, I think for sure it helps being in the Alps and having this in my garden. On a good day, I can just go and pick the good days and fly on the good days and do some nice triangles and stuff. But it was interesting. Like I was like, yeah, I'm in my home territory now, fish, and it was just like completely different way that I've flown the valley. Like normally it's just ridge bashing down, and it was just like using the lee and just climbing up with the wind. Yeah, but yeah, for sure it helps. I think like living in the Alps definitely helps.
Best and worst moment of the race?
Oh, that's a good one. So I think the best moment was day 4. It was I was halfway between Chiemsee and Lemous, and we hiked up. I hiked up with Mark, and it was fully cloudy. And I thought, nah, today is not going to be. It's going to be a hiking day. And then it was incredible. I could take off on the other side, on the south side, and climb up with the clouds on the north, and just going next to around, and yeah, the clouds, and just pulling it off, and to like probably the lowest save of my life. And it was like, I think like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I got this climb which was 2 meters, and just took me all the way up, like clouds next to me and under me. And I was like, okay, wow. I don't know where this is coming from, but I'm just turning, and then across the valley, and then the same again there, real low. I just came into land. I thought, I'll put it in on this forest path and hike up, and then beep, beep, beep. I was like, oh, well, hello, let's do a little circle. And then, yeah, that for me, that was a beautiful day. That was like, wow, I didn't think it would be possible to move that much distance in that day. And yeah, in the evening, got to Lemous, just past Lemous. And yeah, that was a standout moment. The flight coming into Lemous, that was also like super euphoric with the clouds and the storms. Just got in between a storm and then could come around. Yeah, that was super rad. And yeah, the worst day, yeah, probably the day that I got injured. was probably like the hardest, and it was more the thing like I broke myself and I can't go on, and the kind of like pain thinking that I've trained so hard and I've just ended it now, not before the end of the race. Like I really didn't want to get a DNF, and that was like a hard moment to realize. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, yeah, I can keep going, but just there's a day and a half to go, not so just at a real slow pace.
How about, you've already spoken about some of these, so maybe you've already talked about it, but what about scariest moment?
Yeah, I think that one with coming into just before
The
Andermatt.
disco dancing?
Yeah, that
Oh,
one.
Enderman.
There was lots of disco dancing moments. That's the whole, every day there's some disco dancing moments. I just managed to get that one on film. Andermatt was super, super sketchy with the cables. And I think around the back of Mont Blanc, getting blown backwards, like 4 bar going backwards, and trying to dodge airspace flying backwards was that was like, man, I just want to be on the ground.
Mm.
Mm,
Yeah, that's never a very comfortable feeling, is it?
nah.
Steve, tell me about the tech that you guys used during the race. What worked, maybe what didn't? Would you change anything?
Yeah, we used the Zello and Zenly app. That was really good. Zello was like a push to talk
Yeah,
over cellular, and I had
yeah.
like a button toggle on my brake handle, so I could just talk to the team, yeah, such and such, and they could just feed straight back. And with my headset, I had aftershock headset, so
Okay.
it's just
One of
like
those bone conductor ones.
yeah, and that's super good. That with the buff round, I could hear crystal clear, and they could hear me really good.
Mm. Yeah, we used the Zenly and Zello as well. I hate Zenly as an app, but I really like it in the race.
Yeah.
Using it, it's just all these things popping up all the time and stuff. But it's
Mm-hmm.
that was really handy for my team because they could see my battery level. So they know,
Exactly.
okay, he
Yeah.
needs another battery. They knew exactly where I was all the time. I didn't use it so much for them because it didn't matter, but it was great for them tracking me, faster than the live tracking, and then Zello's just wicked.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
really
Zenly is
useful
super
app.
good because I
Yeah,
think with the X-Alps, they've got there's a 5 minute delay, isn't there? Or something with the
yeah,
live tracking. So
exactly.
Zenly is pretty accurate.
Are you going to be planning on doing many other? Are you going to keep doing a bunch of hike and fly races between now and potentially the next one? Is that
Yeah.
still pretty hot for you? Or, I don't know how much. It sounds like tandems are the way you make a living. Does that really dominate your time, or do you have plenty of time to play and do this other stuff?
Yeah. I mean, it was a bit tricky last year with Corona, but hopefully this year is going to be better. Yeah, so mainly flying tandems and then try and get the times off to do like the short hike and flies, the Borns to Fly, the Aga Tour, the Verco Fly.
Mm.
Uh, they're really good. Mm.
How much do you feel? I see in your films you do quite a bit of acro training still. Uh, how much importance do you put on that in terms of your training? Are you doing acro for fun mostly, or has it really become part of your, this is what I need for these kind of races?
Yeah, I do a lot of acro. Or in the training plan, I was doing like 2 days, three days a month training acro. Not just
Mm.
with the acro wing, but also just stall and spins and SIV with the competition wing, and I think that helps heaps just to get that
Mm.
intuitiveness, the feeling. And I enjoy doing acro. I don't do as much as what I used to, but it's also in the winter. It's a lot of fun to train acro because you can go higher from Muin to Schildgrat. It gives you like an extra 800 meters, and
Mm.
it's a blast.
How much are you jumping these days? Is that still a big part of your life?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. So after the race, after I got better, I was jumping a bit more. Did some. I mean, it's not just the jumping. It's more the kind of get in there, the whole process. Like with we jumped the Jungfrau, and it's quite a big thing to plan. With the weather is a massive thing, and getting up there at the right time, and then also taking the ropes, the axes, the harnesses, and then the actual jump itself. So the actual process to get into the jump is kind of also a reason why I do the jump. Like it's the jump's a rad place to get to get down. 4-minute flight or 3-minute. But yeah, it's super, super fun. Super, super fun.
And are you just wingsuiting or are you basing as well?
So there's wingsuiting and tracking. So I just wingsuit because to do both of them at a good level, it takes too much time. So generally it's only wingsuit base. And
okay.
Yeah. To get to the level, it's probably one of the most expensive hobbies I've done because, when you learn, you've got to do a bunch of skydives. Like I did over 700 skydives, and then you start with a small suit, and then you work your way up in the suit. And then the same when you bring it to the base environment, you've got to start tracking and jumping off paragliders first, and then go to Brento. It's a good place to do your first few jumps. And then a few hundred, and then get onto wingsuits, and then small wingsuit, small problem, big wingsuit, big problem. So it's kind of like a progression which you work your way up. You can go up quicker, but it's way safer to do the steps.
And are you still paddling quite a bit? I know that was your background.
No, okay. I really wish I was. Yeah, I really miss paddling, but I should get back into it. Yeah, I'm super keen.
Yeah, I'm wondering where you feel like you're. You and I have pretty similar backgrounds with the paddling and the flying, and taking on these kind of crazier end of adventuring, I guess. Do you know where that comes from?
The paddling?
No, just your approach to risk, your love of pursuing these types of activities that are pretty high consequence. You're obviously pretty comfortable with it. I've wondered if you've ever kind of done a deep dive on your own psyche to, where do you think that comes from? Does it come from your parents? Was it natural? Was it nurtured?
Yeah, good question. It's I mean, I got the kayaking from my dad, and that kind of got me into boating and kayaking. And I think it's some form of a drug when you look at it. With the kayaking, when you're paddling big rivers, big class 4-5, and that you've got to have the skill. Like to get down it requires skill, and it's the endorphins and stuff that it releases. And I think it's the same as paragliding and jumping. Like it's like, I wouldn't say an addiction, but it's, why do we fly? Because it feels good. And then this kind of like progression, or like, how can you get the next feeling? And it's just feeding it a little bit.
Yeah, I find it really interesting that a lot of us come from a paddling background, and that a lot of people who get really good at flying fast are paddlers.
Yeah.
They seem to have the right understanding of risk. It seems to be a really good fit for pilots because, like in piloting, we can't stop. We can't hit the pause button and go, you know what, I need to reassess. You're in the air. You got to deal.
I was going to say, I think it's the same with the water, because it's the same dynamic flow, and that's the same as the boat, and it's the flow which you get into. And I think when you look at the mountain, and if it's windy, I just picture like a bunch of water coming over it, and where's the eddy going to be? Where's the hole going to be? What's going to... So I think they kind of like translate.
Yeah, I think they do really translate. And like you said, I think that it does give... Paddlers have an innate ability to read the air because they've learned it from the water. It does the same thing, like you just said. And I think probably a lot of paddlers don't even recognize that when they start getting into flying. But it was, my time sailing and my time paddling have certainly, even though I can't concretely look at something and give you an answer, articulate it. I think first, it's embedded in who I am. Just all those years of doing it have really helped me, like you said, understand, okay, this is not a good place to be, or this is a good place to be.
Yeah.
So let's rally through some of these questions. What was the biggest aha moment you've had with flying say in the last year or the last, in recent memory, something that really clicked that has changed your approach or your ability or how that's impacted your success as a pilot?
The whole thing with the monkey on the shoulder and like
Mm.
knowing when to push and when not to push, and just trying to like really listen to the monkey and when not to listen to the monkey. Like sometimes a push, 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 because if someone's out in front or want to fly fast. So more gearing down and just using the whole day rather than just changing modes. I've tried to work on a lot more, not when it's coming to the end of the day, just really try and gear down. And a few times I was like, okay, yeah, that's a bit of an aha moment.
If you could only make one more flight, this is kind of a dark question, but it's interesting. If you could only make one more flight, where would you go? What's the place that you dream about at night, mostly about flying?
Wow, that's a good one, Gav. The Himalayas I haven't done yet. I'd really like to go to the
Yeah,
Himalayas. Yeah, that looks super rad. I'm actually planning a Volbiv trip with Jeff Shapiro to Mongolia this June.
cool.
So that's on the cards. But I think the Himalayas, that just looks. When I was in Dubai, I looked at Antoine Gerard's. He's got like this 3D movie thing which you put on the headset, and wow, man, I put it on and it's incredible. Yeah, so I really like
Whoa,
to.
I haven't seen that. That'd be neat. So it's kind of a VR type thing?
Exactly, it's a VR thing, and you put it on and you just look like you're flying in the Himalayas wherever you look, up at the wing or down or behind
Whoa.
you. Yeah, it's rad.
Yeah, he has been what an adventurous guy. He has really ramped it up. And he's been doing some very cool stuff. I need to talk to him again on the show. Here's a hard one. Does free flight make other aspects of your life better or worse?
Better, hands
What
down.
way?
Yeah, because you're just out there doing it, seeing the world. It makes me a better person. If I'm locked inside all day, or I don't know, working on the house, then as soon as I'm out and I'm in the mountains, it's you kind of open, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, this is a good one. Tell me how you manage, and this is probably, kind of a continuum. It probably changes as the years go by, but do you have kind of a mantra or a playbook for managing risk?
Playbook for managing risk. Yeah, it's
You talked
with
about the monkey on your shoulder. I
yeah.
think we all try to tune into him, but is there, I don't know, anything more you can say about just how
Like
you approach?
risk analysis and stuff.
Yeah.
I think with flying, yeah, it's more off my gut feeling, how I'm feeling. And if I've got a real strong gut feeling, if it's flying or jumping, or then I won't fly or I won't jump. I'll be like, nah. And the more that I listen to my gut, is generally 9 times out of 10, it's more right. So
Mm.
just listening to myself more, I think, and like my inner feeling. I really try and with flying and other air sports, that's kind of the biggest thing I try and pay attention to.
Okay, last one. This one just popped into my head. What do you think is the biggest misconception from the viewing public of the X-Alps? And what I mean is, millions of people watch this race and they watch the live tracking and they get totally embedded in it and kind of sucked in. What do you think is what do you think they have wrong about what they're watching?
It,
Whether it's, are we all just total nutters? Are we, or the weather? I don't, yeah, I don't get, we don't get to watch it.
yeah, I know what you
It's an
mean. Yeah,
interesting thing, isn't it? I don't know
yeah.
what they're seeing.
I think with the live tracking, like sometimes you'll do a detour off route, and they're like, "Why is he going that way in the sky? He should be flying straight." But in front of you, there's a big storm, or like it's all shaded over.
Mm.
So, and how hard it is, like it's pretty hard. The actual,
Which
yeah,
that's an interesting one because I think they all know it's really hard, but it's actually harder than they think they know, isn't
yeah, definitely.
it?
And I think with the sleep deprivation, that for me, like I said before, was the hardest. There was a few times that I actually fell asleep, like straight asleep during a flight. once was in Fierce, and I got the turn point, I went up and then took off, and it was just this nice beep, beep, beep. And I just kind of leant to one side and just closed my eyes. And then the next thing I know, I was just like, whoa, like a few raindrops. I was like, oh, it wasn't long. It's probably 20 seconds, 30 seconds, but I was gone. I was fast asleep. And I was like, oh, okay.
Totally out. I think we've all experienced that. That's got to be shocking to hear from, people watching the race. Wait, what? You fell asleep? But there are times I had one of those between Dent d'Oche and Mont Blanc. Sounds like kind of similar conditions, just ripping wind. But and the wind was coming from right where I was trying to go, heading towards Passy and before the crossing into the Cotines Valley. But I'd learned that at the Dent d'Oche, turn point in that coal, it was just super unreasonable. It was really ripping. But I'd learned that if I could keep my head down, kind of below the peak tops, I could make these little hops. And that's what I did all day. I made these little hops. Some of them were successful. Some of them were not, to say the least. Really terrifying crash at one of them. But going across Passy, it had been dark for hours. And it was just, there hadn't been any sun. And I got one of those, like you're talking about, just this tiny climb before leaving the train and going across the city. And going across the city, I found this crazy good glide. It was just ding, ding, ding. I was actually going up across, and I was just, where is this? It must have been a little mini convergence, at the end of the day or something. And I totally fell asleep, just out. Just because I thought, my body will know what to do. I'm just going to take a quick one here. And I actually don't know how. I mean, it wasn't that long because when I woke up, I looked down. I'm still over the city, but just a really nice sleep. It was just, oh, that felt good. I want to do it again.
It's always when it's weak, when it's juicy, then you're awake. But when it's like a nice weak climb, you're like, I'll just lean. I'll just close my eyes for a few minutes, seconds.
I don't know if you heard, I did a podcast with Aaron after the 2019 race. And when he was going down the between Saint Hilaire and Monteviso, that Le Grave, heading towards Briançon, he was so tired he started watching YouTube videos.
Yeah, I heard that.
Awake. I thought that was terrific. That was good fun. Steve, great to have you on the show, and really fun to chat with you. It sounds like you're heading in the right direction with your back, which is great. So happy healing, and can't wait to race with you in the future. I hope you'll be in Colombia or something this winter, but good luck to everything. And, maybe before we close here, I know you want to give a shout out to your team and maybe any sponsors. So anybody we should be aware of, go for it.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks heaps. Without the team, you couldn't do the X-Alps, and they did a lot of the hard work. So Matthias was my main supporter. Danu, this 75-year-old dude, we called him the Godfather. It's my girlfriend's mom's partner. Lance actually, he broke his foot in just before the prologue. So he was.
I remember that.
Yeah, which was and then Ollie took his place. He was super good. He was like the heart and soul of the party. Mark Simpson, he was like the physio, did a really, really good job. So yeah, big thanks to those guys. Yeah, that's mainly Advance. Working with Advance is a real pleasure. They're really, really good to work with. And the wings I'm super happy with. Yeah, they looked after me.
So I lied. That wasn't my last question. How did you put your team together? That's always kind of an interesting journey.
Yeah, for me it was to have the my mates with me, and I lived with Mark in New Zealand, and he was like, yeah, if you ever do the X-Alps. And back then I thought, nah man, I'm not that crazy to do the X-Alps. And then I was like, give him a call. He's like, are you keen to come this year? He's like, yeah, definitely. So he flew from America. Matthias, he's a work colleague, and I got him into flying back in New Zealand. And I've been doing most of the training with him, and he's like the backbone. He's done all of the helping with the planning, with the food, with the everything that goes along with the prep work. Danu's the godfather, like I said, he's a 75-year-old dude. He's the oldest guy in Switzerland to get his paragliding license.
Whoa.
Yeah, so that was
Wicked.
just cool having him. Like, you got like the young pups on the team, youngish pups, and then this old dude just to kind of keep the balance right. Lance is my best mate from back home, and he knows me when I'm rock bottom, and knows the things to say or the things that we used to do as kids, because when you're
psychologist.
For sure, when you're down with the demons and you just got to have that redirection, and it says something that you did in your early days. And yeah, he was awesome. And my mentor coach, Tony Clotter, he really helped me just with my head, just to kind of work out small goals and to process the whole thing to get to the actual race. And also through the race, he come on a few days and kind of help me out. So yeah, thanks.
I'd love to hear more about that. Can you take a little deeper dive into the coaching, the mental coaching you did with Tony, and what you learned from that?
Yeah, so he kind of just broke it down. Like, when I knew that I was doing the X-Alps, it was like this massive boom, deer in headlights, sort of like, what am I doing? How am I going to train? This is more than what I can handle. And then it was talking with him and just breaking it down into small bite-sized pieces. And okay, if that happens, then we do this, or let's think of a strategy or something to work on what we need to work on the strengths and the weaknesses. And we did lots of ski tours together, and just general talking, just like bringing up situations and scenarios and kind of working around more how my head can deal with it, like knowing if I'm at the back and having this kind of fear inside the head, how to work with that. And just say, well, it's just a game, isn't it? It's just, at the end of the day, it's a game. And then as soon as I was working with this game approach, like, who cares? There's a lot of other things going on in the world than this race. Then I'd be more relaxed with the whole flying. And, when I felt myself getting stressed, that I couldn't get over this thing, it's like, okay, option A, option B, and just kind of trying to not zone in and get like tunnel focused. That helped a real lot to kind of like bring it out and like broaden the view. Okay, different options. What can I do? So he really helped me a lot with that.
Great stuff. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it.
Nice one. Cheers.
See you on the flip side somewhere.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, man. That was a real pleasure. If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support. and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.